I think everybody wants to talk about all of them, but I'm going to stick on the nose for a minute, and then I am going to the ears because there are multiple questions about the ears. But one of the things that came up very commonly is, could you please talk about saddle nose that occurs with some patient who have sinus infection? Does the damage occur quickly or over a long period of time? Are there surgical options to address the issue before too much damage happens? And what surgical options are there once the nasal area is collapsed?
So that you're talking about, that's a lot. So the saddle nose deformity, I'm going to use a little jargon for 1 second, is the loss of the dorsal septal cartilage. The nose itself has different cartilages. There's a lower lateral cartilage, an upper lateral septal cartilages. It's not the important what, but when you have inflammation, think of this word as inflammation in my world is a euphemism for the fire. There's a fire in your nose, which eventually causes blood flow to stop to these cartilages. Remember, cartilage doesn't have much blood in it. It's not like the liver, or the kidneys, which get a lot of blood. So it doesn't take much for cartilage to die. Clearly, if there's an active process, we talked in the first slides about differentiating active disease from damage, which comes after the active disease, or when the fire is raging to what's left afterwards. You have to put out the fire if it's raging. Now, that's generally medical, and that's why I work closely with the rheumatologist or the lung doctors. Nobody can do this alone, I promise you. It really is a team approach. And you have to be humble in this business. Once you ask, can it happen quickly? Yeah, I've seen people go from a normal nose to a significant saddle in between 6 to 8 weeks, and that's relatively rapid. As the cartilage starts dying, the nose starts collapsing. It's an anatomic defect. Now, when someone's in the active phase, I will not reconstruct them, but if the fire is out, so to say, and you have them now where things are in remission and we expect things to stabilize, the answer is yes, there are different repair techniques. And I've done actually a bunch of saddle nose repairs. The way you do it is you have to now replace what's lost, which means either cartilage or sometimes bone or sometimes elements of both. I can tell you I've taken the bone from the skull, from the elbow. Usually now, most of the time, we take cartilage or cartilage and bone from the ribs. You can get what's called bank bone from a lab, a cadaveric graft that has pros and cons. The biggest pro is that you don't have a donor site, so it's one operation instead of two at that time. To me, the con is you're getting a cadaveric transplant, and this age of who knows what. Even though these things are sterilized to everything known to man and they're approved by the FDA, some people don't like that idea, and I respect that also. But there are ways of reconstructing the nose. I always say I go for the bronze medal, not the gold medal. We've had a couple of golds come out more by accident. I've seen what happens when people, I actually once published a paper on what can go wrong in a saddle deformity, why I think some people make mistakes when you use standard nose job techniques. And that's the stuff I tend to avoid. I usually do it with a colleague, a friend who's a plastic surgeon, and we kind of yin and yang it. He's trying to make it perfect, and I'd say stop, and it's don't. Oh yes, no, it's almost like Laurel and Hardy in the operating room, kind of fun. But we've had, thank God, never had any meaningful complications. We've only had good results. So there's hope, there's redemption. I just want to stress that in terms of the nose, and that's from a functional perspective as well as a cosmetic perspective. But just throw one other note, I've said a lot of people say, oh, it's just a collapsed nose. I know a lot of people find it to be one of the most devastating complications because people see it. We're our face is our face to the world. The nose is the mid-third going horizontally and vertically. I've heard women, cry to me. She's tired of the jokes saying, what's the matter? Your husband's still beating you up or something. To some men, saying they're tired of people saying, oh, I'm still putting the cocaine in your nose. It's very, very hurtful to these people. And by giving them some hope and redemption, you do good. I'll just give you one anecdote. This is probably almost 20 years ago. It was just a lovely girl who had GPA Wegener's and an associated disease called Crohn's disease. There's an association between the two. It's a GI disease. She was a young girl in her early 30s, was a school teacher in nursery, and she wanted to meet a guy, wanted to get married. And it was a devastating thing for her. And one day when she overheard the kids, these are 4-year-old kids, playing a game and talking about, something about the monster. And then she realized she was the monster. She just lost it. And she's the only girl I ever actually operated on who never got off all her immunosuppressives. And it went well, for years. I was getting a card for once a year for about 7-8 years. And so there was a happy ending to that story.